All right, hello and welcome to the Mario Kart 64 One Try League Season 2.
What did I drink? So first we went to a restaurant and I had two tequila margaritas, and then I had one big giant chew high, and then I had another big giant chew high.
I'm going to
Now I'm
ask
pretty
them to mute
drunk.
their mics.
I think I had more too. I don't remember.
And then I will introduce them.
Hell yeah.
All right, let's try that again. Hello, I'm Haddock, and I'll be commentating your Mario Kart 64 One Try League Season 2 race today. Today we have Shlongster7 versus MrPitt. And based on the rankings here, MrPitt is ranked 368th, which makes him the favorite. And Schlongster is ranked 869th. Nice. So the format here is these players are going to race 3 sets. That's best of 3 sets here. And each set is comprised a best 4 out of 7 races. So first of 3 sets will win. And they will go back and forth choosing a course that will hopefully give them a win. But twice throughout the entire match, they'll be able to use a joker. And a joker, as you can see, they can choose a shortcut and a flap. Flap is just short for fast lap, in which case they will use all 3 mushrooms on the first lap and see who gets a better time. Shortcut, they can choose a track 2 go shortcut to give themselves a bit of advantage. I'm not sure if or what shortcuts that both the players know, so that'll be a very interesting pick. Usually you want to save those for when you can really bring it back. It has definitely saved some sets and some matches in the past, so it's very interesting to see where each player will choose them. All right. And I'm going to ask the players to ready up, and then we're going to get started here. All right, and the first pickup is going to be Shlongster7. He's going to choose a course, and we're going to get rolling here. All right. We are set to go, and Shlongster is taking us to Koopa Troopa Beach first. So I'm going to count them down, and we're going to get started. All right, here we go. Good luck to both the players. There's a very high chance we're going to see a PR from one of these guys at some point during this match, if not several times from at least Shlongster. All right. So, Koopa Troopa Beach, a pretty technical track. You want to try and charge up the mini turbos. You go inside the turtle to the left, and what you really do is just try to charge those mini turbos right next to the rock wall as best as you can, but without hitting it naturally, because that rock wall will tumble you, which is kind of hilarious to see. But the real tricky part is making it into the cave, which both players did successfully on lap 1. Very nicely done from both the players. It looks like they are just about even here. 28.89, 29.93. Shlongster falls behind just about a second here. You can see MrPitt is charging up the mini turbos a bit tighter. He uses the mushroom around where you normally do for the fast lap spot. The ideal mushroom spot for this is to use it right as you're exiting the cave. MrPitt making it into the cave just barely. He kind of went a little bit far to the right. If you land in the cave on the right-hand side, you'll actually fall through the floor. MrPitt hitting the crab is going to slow him down. He uses the mushroom to get back up to speed. Probably a smart choice. Shlongster is making it through using his mushrooms for using the mushrooms to get into the cave. Funnily enough, MrPitt makes it, lands on the right side, doesn't fall through the floor. Shlongster makes it through. Very nicely done. I was expecting at least one person to fall out, but they surprised me there. MrPitt rolling through with the 127.73. And Shlongster with the 129.91. So MrPitt takes the first track. All right. Next up, MrPitt's taking us to Rainbow Road already. Very nice. And get a nice long course in here right away. So we go from one of the shortest tracks in the game. So we're going through one of the shortest tracks in the game to one of the longest, Rainbow Road, taking a bit, somewhere around 5 minutes of gameplay. Luckily, they're not playing on PAL, otherwise it would be 6 minutes, which makes it a little bit longer yet. So at the beginning here, you'll see them use the start boost, but then slow down so that they don't fall. Falling off of Rainbow Road and just, you know, how you would normally play as a casual player is actually slower. Whenever you're airborne and falling, it's actually slower than just slowing down a little bit so that you stay stuck to the road. So they're gonna be dodging in between chain chomps, which are on a set cycle, so they are always in the same spots at the same times. But depending on your pace, especially later down the line on laps 2 and 3, it does seem in some areas that you want to go on the inside is not a good choice, because some of those chain chomps will go all the way to the wall and you can't pass through them, or they go halfway and then turn around. So sometimes you need to zag when you should have zigged. You hit it, and then when you're on lap 3, it's very, very frustrating. MrPitt taking the lead at the moment. He's just having some cleaner driving. Shlongster is just not making enough mini turbos, kind of in the center of the road. Versus you can see MrPitt is right up, charging up closer to the turns there. So lap 1 definitely has a commanding lead at the moment, but one chain chomp hit will make it such that it will even them out. So still plenty of time on that, as we have yet to make it to lap 2. Yes, this is a mainly non-shortcut tournament, so only once throughout the match can either player choose to play a track shortcut, which they will indicate when they choose a map. So this is strictly non-shortcut, except for when they designate once per match. So yes, right at the beginning, you can actually jump to the left off of that ramp and land further down on the course, skipping a very large part of the map. There's actually a new shortcut that was just discovered. I believe it was 2 days ago, where if you use the start boost or use a mushroom and jump off Rainbow Road at the right angle, you just barely cross over the finish line, but way far out, and you actually fall out of bounds, and the Lakitu will actually just pick you up and put you on the lap, like the checkered point, and then you skip the lap. So we've seen laps as slow as 13 seconds so far. I'm not sure what the world record is now, but because it changes pretty much every day, new setup. Shlongster hitting the chain chomp, he will fall very, very behind now. MrPitt with a commanding lead, but still plenty of time for him to hit one. Looks like he's playing it very safe. But yeah, this game, as far as shortcuts, has been blown up a lot lately. Toad's Turnpike shortcuts, Royal Raceway shortcuts for the 150 cc's with red shells, a red shell skip for Rainbow Road, and now this new Sherbet Land shortcut, and now a new Rainbow Road shortcut. So a very exciting time to be a Mario Kart player. MrPitt having a good time on the stage. It's I think he's getting to the range now. He would have to mess up royally, like falling off the stage at this point for Shlongster to catch up. This is definitely one of those where, because it's such a long track, you gain so much time over the course of 5 minutes, 5.5 minutes. That now at this point he would have to hit 2 chain chomps, maybe even 3 at this point, and there isn't even 3 left on the map. So there are some angles where you could hop off of the track, but you would have to really just be going for it at that point. So very, very good driving. The ideal mushroom spot on this course is the part where the track goes down and up, where Shlongster just was. You want to use the mushroom to get up that incline because it will slow you down severely. So ideally you use it there, but it's actually quite risky, and I don't blame them for using the mushroom in different spots, because it's very easy just to get caught on the wall, because you always want to be drifting when you use a mushroom, and sometimes given the certain angle, you're just gonna ride it right into the star wall and then just be It'll be a useless mushroom and cost you more time. So MrPitt rolls through with the 510.06 and the 523.02 from Shlongster. So MrPitt takes the second course here. All right, and Shlongster taking us to Frap Snowland. Good pick. One of my favorites, in fact. All right. So this is a course that features light flurries and explosive snowmen. So there are snowmen littered throughout the course, and if you hit one, it does explode and tumble you. So ideally, you stay away from them. And you just kind of want to be going right through, right where MrPitt was, and use the mushroom. It's a very, very tough mushroom spot because, as you can see, if you go a little bit too far to the left, you just bounce. There's nothing you can do. You just bounce right over the stage and land out of bounds. So that was one of the few things that can happen. Other things that can happen are the line that you use to get over that hill with the mushroom. If you're a little bit too far to the left, you'll actually just go out of bounds and get picked up by the Lakitu. Or if you're too far to the right, you're not going to clear the hill at all. Or another thing that can happen is you can actually fall because there's 3 explosive snowmen on the basically where you ideally want to land, and you can just fall right between them. So MrPitt a little bit too far to the right, he gets caught up in the deep snow. Shlongster with the commanding lead right now, playing it a bit safer. But MrPitt with one good mushroom, I actually expect that he could make it. So good so far. MrPitt with as you can tell, has a little bit more experience. Being the higher ranked player, you can kind of tell the difference, but easy as it goes. MrPitt hits the snowman, and you get a good example of what happens. So easy does it. Shlongster looking solid. And he rolls through 152.13. He takes his first point of the set. So it is now 1-2. And MrPitt's pick. And he chooses shortcut, Toad's Turnpike. He's ready to just use that right now. All right. Okay. So Toad's Turnpike is normally a track that's very technical. You know, you're just kind of weaving in between all the traffic here, trucks, buses, cars. But right at the beginning, instead of driving the normal way, you want to go out of bounds, and you trigger what's called the Lakitu effect. And that's after he sets you down, or it rather, um, while the Lakitu is still on the screen, and even when it's just above the screen, it can't be triggered again. And what Mr. Pitt's trying to do is quickly, before the Lakitu effect is gone, and he could be, kind of trapped out of bounds, like what happens for this first one. You can actually fall down the track to the lower side, as you saw Mr. Pitt went, but he didn't land on the track. So because he didn't land on the track, it may not trigger the second part of the skip, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to confuse the way that the track tracks your progress. And when he goes out of bounds the next time, ideally what you want to do is be set where he landed when the Lakitu put him back on. But because he didn't land on the actual course itself, on the road, it may not trigger it. So we'll see as he goes out of bounds if it will count it or not. Otherwise, he's gonna have to do it again. It looks like he's gonna do it the long way, regardless, because he fell under the stage. It's not gonna put him down there. So he is doing this in a manner where he's not falling onto the track, and at the moment, Shlongster has actually maintained a lead as a result. So slow and steady wins the race without a doubt. If Mr. Pitt can just nail it, he does still have a chance. But it's gonna take a first try on this last shortcut for him to make up that time. Ooh, and he hits the wall. He's not able to get down, so he's gonna have to go out of bounds again. And essentially, what you want to do is you are kind of going around. As you can see, the track is made of a figure 8, and you're using that to gauge where you're supposed to be running out of bounds. Having some trouble getting over the wall. It is quite tough, and it's even tougher in 100 cc's to get over the wall. You have to actually jump one frame before you hit the wall, and be going fast enough to go over it and get triggered out of bounds. So Shlongster actually takes it with a 239.85, and he ties up the set. MrPitt making it down. And as you can tell, getting over the wall is one thing. The vehicles on the road are on a set cycle. So as soon as you've kind of missed a few shortcuts, the cars, the buses, the trucks start to get in your way, and you can be continually hit and have to kind of wait the cycle out in order to make it over. All right. Next up, Shlongster takes us to Sherbetland. Another icy track. One thing to note, which is a kind of commonly misunderstood mechanic, is that because there's ice as a road, or the snow as a road for Frapp Snowland, there is actually no ice physics in this game. And I've seen that mistake in the past, where people think that you kind of slide in a different manner, but the game actually plays exactly the same on these icy tracks. All right, so this is actually another track that does have a crazy shortcut. MrPitt falls in. Oh, that will give Shlongster a big lead because not only when you fall in the water, it's not just the matter of um, the Lakitu picking you up and putting you back down in the course. You actually get frozen in an ice block. Shlongster hitting a penguin, so it's going to give MrPitt a chance here. So you're frozen on an ice block, and you have to break out of it. And if you are... oh, Shlongster having a really tough time in the cave getting around. So MrPitt actually takes the lead again as a result. He kind of went the long way and hit a penguin, but MrPitt hits a penguin. So yeah, if you're revving the engine too fast, you actually will spin yourself out instead of just accelerating. So whoa, MrPitt with the large bounce into the cave. Oh, that was neat. But MrPitt having a better time in the caves. We'll see. It could still come back around. So these penguins are on a set cycle, so they're always in the same place at the same time. But based on your pace, wow, MrPitt with a very large jump there, very. That was great. Yeah, T Pullman, he hit the left corner of the entrance to the cave, and if you hit R at the same time, MrPitt hitting a penguin, still not going to give him enough to let Shlongster make a comeback. But if you hit some corners and hit R at the same time, you can get a very large bounce, very large bounce. So MrPitt's going to take this one with 159.12. You can see it happen a lot on Choco Mountain, Koopa Troopa Beach. Sometimes you can get air. A lot of times when you hit corners on that stage, it'll actually just tumble you. Very interesting. All right, so MrPitt up 3-2. All right, and we're going to Moo Moo Farm. Yeah, that was a neat bounce. So we go to one of the shortest tracks on the stage now, Moo Moo Farm. And there's kind of a split as far as people who like this stage and people who don't. Because in order to get, a pretty decent PR, once you get beyond a certain point, you have to you're required to drive into very risky territory, which pretty much involves rolling over one or two of the mole hills. And every time that you roll over one, you have a chance of one popping out and getting in your way and, basically just ending the run. So a lot of people don't like it because it's completely random, because you're forced to drive on uneven ground, which is already tough, because you can charge a mini turbo really quick, but the inputs don't actually matter if you're airborne. And you can see as they roll over these hills that they kind of bounce a little bit, which can eat your inputs and make it so that you get caught driving over the molehills, even though you don't want to. So not a bad lap from either player. But the uneven terrain makes it very tough to stay on the right track. Oh wow, MrPitt using both of his shrooms to get around that. Kind of hit some dicey areas right there. But not looking too bad here. I believe we have yet to see a mole hit yet. MrPitt taking the good angle. You kind of want to go on the inside. Shlongster going under a mole. You can actually roll under one when they're at the peak of their jump. Very lucky. MrPitt taking the course and taking the set as a result. All right. So MrPitt up 1 set now. Which means Shlongster is first up to pick for the second set here. And where will we go next? He's taking us to Yoshi Valley. This is going to be very interesting. Yoshi Valley is one of those courses that it has a very large gap of time between top players and lower ranked players, because depending on what they do here, the fastest way through the track is to go left, where the track splits, and you want to kind of go between spinies. The spinies are on a set cycle, much like many other things in this game, but depending on your pace, it can be impossible. They can be spread out evenly and make it really tough to get through. So a lot of times at certain levels, you just see the players go right, which is a lot slower by at least a couple seconds each lap, but can be safer and could even win because you hit the spiny, you spin out, kind of like if you hit the crab on Koopa Troopa Beach, or if you hit a banana and spin out. And because you don't have control at that moment, what happens is you can actually spin out and then go off the course. And falling off the course wastes about 10 to 12 seconds. So it's very much something that you don't want to happen. So MrPitt falling off. Shlongster did go around, so even though MrPitt fell off, he's actually still in the lead. Perhaps not actually, because the race is actually out of sync. So he had a 40-48. Okay, so Shlongster did fall behind by a second there. MrPitt taking the right path, very smart. Both players taking the right path. MrPitt getting caught on the right before the rope bridge. You can just kind of get bounced back, and then still have to MrPitt making the jump that time. Shlongster goes around. Not bad driving from the players for the rest of the time. Even though MrPitt did fall off, making that hairpin cut does save a ridiculous amount of time versus going past. It's one of the couple places where it's technically a shortcut, but it's so easy to do and very risky that it is arbitrarily allowed for non-shortcut. So he takes the first track of the second set, and we're going to be going to Calamari Desert next. So this one does feature a large train, and this is also on a set cycle like many things in the game, but you want to be on a certain pace depending on kind of where you're ranked, because if you're going too fast, you're going to catch the tail end of the caboose rather of the train. In some areas, there's two parts of the track where you cross over train tracks, and if you're too slow, you're going to have to wait out the train. Some players elect to go between the train cars, very risky at a very high level play, but does save you having to wait out the train. All right, so right at the beginning, as you can see, MrPitt using the time trials strategy of going immediately to the left and using the mushroom to kind of get around that rock face. And normally you want to be going as close to the fence off the road as you can. And excuse me, a lot of times you see a person use a mushroom there. But you don't have to. It's still faster than going on the road to the right. MrPitt, is he gonna make it over? He makes it through the train, very very tight. If he would have been a little bit slower or messed up at some point, he would have had to wait out that train. Shlongster making it over. He's electing to drive on the track. So MrPitt, just based on general knowledge, he's gonna take this one unless he hits a train. And so the final lap here, you can kind of see that the caboose just crossed over, which means he'll just have enough time to make it before the train comes back for the second set of tracks. He does elect to go around. Smart choice. I have definitely hit the train at that point, thinking that I had more space than I really did. All right, MrPitt rolling over with the 148.91. Shlongster is trailing with the 156.48, so MrPitt is now up 2-0 in the second set here. And where will we go next? Looks like we're going to Luigi Raceway. The first track in the game, it's such that it's very well overplayed, and the difference in rankings is hundredths of a second in difference at top level play. This is one that is a highly technical track and a great start to the entire game, because you have straightaways, you have some turns, but they are a bit wider. And even getting a PR of just like a tenth of a second is a large gain on this track. You're lucky to get such a large PR, especially later on. As such, it can be very, very frustrating when you feel like you've played very well, because you can just miss one mini turbo and that's it. Your run is over. And it does give you a nice straightaway. So as you get a little bit as you get a little bit more advanced, instead of just charging mini turbos around around the turns, which is expected. You start to charge mini turbos down straightaways called SSMTs, straight stretch mini turbos. And that's where the game gets really interesting because you're trying to angle your kart in a way that you're charging a mini turbo quickly and maximizing that boost by just driving straight for about half a second. You want to be charging a mini turbo about every 2 seconds, and then driving straight. That's one of the most important things. You don't want to just hop right back into a mini turbo because you want to actually get the boost, and you're saving about 0.1 of a second to 0.15 of a second every time you get one. But if you charge it too slowly, you're losing time. You know, if you charge it too quickly, it's not going to change the color of the smoke. MrPitt, you're doing a very interesting 3 shroom. You kind of want to get onto the back onto the road a little bit quicker than that. Unfortunately, he was on the dirt just a little bit longer than you wanted to. So he does the 0-3-0. So instead of taking that final turn, you just want to use the mushrooms and kind of ride right next to that brick wall. Ideally, you know, there are some other advanced techniques like the mystery boost. When you use one mushroom, you want to be charging a mini turbo and release it as you hit the wall. You want to intentionally hit the wall, and you'll actually get a little bit of extra of a boost. No idea why it happens, but that's why it's called the mystery boost. So 142.55 to 144.85. So MrPitt is up 3-0 in the second set here. And MrPitt's taking us to Bowser's Castle. Great pick, especially for what could potentially be the last track of this set. Bowser's Castle is, in my opinion, probably the most interesting track in the game. There's thwomps on a cycle, like everything else in the game, or most other things rather. But there's also in the hallway, there's a set of thwomps that chase you and try to get in your way and just try to come down right in front of your cart. And normally when you're doing time trials, you have a ghost that you train because they also will follow the ghost. And the ghost, you want to use all 3 mushrooms at the beginning to quickly get in the corner, the back left corner, so that they just stay by the ghost, and then you get to go scot-free. But because ghosts aren't allowed in this one try league, you have to just go around. So you want to go far to the right or far to the left because they don't go that far. Shlongster hitting the thwomps. So it makes it a little bit tougher, but you just kind of want to stay to the left or the right so that they don't get in your way, because you always run the risk of those going right in front of you when you're in the center. So that is one difference versus just playing time trials normally, because normally those thwomps won't get in your way because they're stuck back in the back corner chasing the ghost. Which can allow you to go between the 2 thwomps at the end of that hallway, which is still pretty tough to do, but you save a lot of time as a result because you can take a better line. Shlongster getting caught. Oh, but Mr. Pitt getting caught on the bridge. I thought he was gonna fall in. That would have evened it up without a doubt. Shlongster hitting the thwomp but not spinning out is very interesting. Sometimes when you hit the thwomps at the right angle, you just kind of get bumped back. So a little bit more ideal of a mistake, but MrPitt still with the commanding lead. Bumps the wall. Still uses the mushroom. MrPitt going to the right. That's my favorite. It doesn't give you a good angle to get into that narrow corridor. MrPitt hitting the thwomp as it laughs in his face. But Still not enough to give Shlongster a fighting chance as he bumps a thwomp himself and gets laughed at. Shlongster holding the mushroom for the right time to strike. MrPitt rolling through to 08.79. And he's going to take the second set. All right, so third set, potentially the final set if MrPitt takes it. And we're going to Royal Raceway. All right. So this is another one of the 3 tracks in the game that has a ghost. If you get a certain time, which is very reasonable, you unlock the Peach Ghost that you can race against. This is another very technical track. It does feature going off the road pretty much at the beginning and cutting around the checkered pink wall, and very easy to hit the wall. If you don't cut enough of the grass, it kind of slows you down. You'll see MrPitt do it right at the beginning. You can take a very easy angle and still save time. But the more you can cut of that, you save a ridiculous amount of time. It's huge. It's huge of saving a lot of time in time trials. And then the mushroom you cut, pretty much kind of like the same thing as that 180 at the beginning, but use a mushroom to cut as much of that grass at the same time. You pretty much want to be almost passing the wall and then just cut a tight angle with the mushroom. Again, better mushrooms save a lot of time. So those are really the 2 major areas to save a lot of time. The 180 cut at the beginning, which you don't use the shroom, and then the mushroom cut. So MrPitt with a bit of a lead here. Yeah, you can tell on MrPitt's side, even though he cut the grass, you can kind of get caught, and it does slow you down quite a bit. But it's still better than going around, without a doubt. MrPitt kind of taking a wide angle there, using that mushroom cut. And in 150 cc's going off the ramp, sometimes you can get a bounce at the end, but if you jump right before the MrPitt using the mushroom in a very interesting spot, cuts kind of like little bit of that hill. I don't know. He probably accidentally hit the trigger while he was going over that. But yeah, 150 cc's coming down the ramp. Sometimes you can get bounce, which will eat a good amount of time. You hit the ground so hard that you bounce, and it slows you down considerably. You don't have to worry about that with 100 cc's unless you charge a mini turbo, like going off the ramp, or doing the jump, which is unnecessary for avoiding the bounce. MrPitt having to go around with no mushroom. Still considerably in the lead as far as this track goes. If he falls in the water, it would be over. I've definitely done that before because there's such an angle on the inside that if you fall off the track at that point, you pretty much get thrown right in the water. MrPitt taking the first course, so he's now up 1-0 in the third set. 232-44 to 236-13. Excuse me. All right, so Mr. Pitt gonna use his fast lap joker. We're going to Frap Snowland. So when they use the flap joker, flap being short for fast lap, they're gonna just drive just the first lap only, and use all three mushrooms. All right, so this will just be one lap only. They're going to use all three mushrooms on the first lap, and the fastest lap will win it. So Mr. Pitt has used both of his jokers. There are none remaining for the remainder of the race. The match, rather. It'll be very interesting to see where they use these mushrooms too, because the normal fast lap strategy is actually very very risky, because after the second turn, instead of going on the road, you just use it to go kind of over the heavy snow area. That doesn't look like they're gonna use them here. Mr. Pitt hitting a snowman. This gives Shlongster the advantage here, unless he misses. He has yet to use a mushroom. He uses two and fires them through the snow through the straightaway. So despite using them in interesting spots, he looks like he's gonna take this one. Mr. Pitt rolling through 39. And Shlongster takes it with a 37-32. Awesome. That was great. So now it is 1-1 in the third set. I'm always a bit tickled when the opposite person wins the Joker pick. But Easy does it again. He didn't hit anything. He didn't use the ideal mushroom spots, but it didn't matter. Very nicely done. All right, and Shlongster's taking us back to Toad's Turnpike, non-shortcut this time. So we get to enjoy the rest of the track. Once again, the trucks, buses, cars are on a set cycle. They're always in the same spot, but it's different than when you play on 150 cc's. They are actually different cycle than on Toad's Turnpike on 100 cc's. So this is another one of the tracks like Luigi Raceway, where you even if you get a very small PR, you do gain a lot of ranks, because you want to be charging mini turbos. There's another straightaway on here, but sometimes when you're charging mini turbos, you can have a bad angle and end up hitting a car, or having to go around a car, which loses a lot of time. So there are, especially on laps 2 and 3, very tough spots. Because the ideal line, especially beginning the second lap, is to go inside between the trucks and the bus that's in the left lane, between that and the wall. And it's a very small gap. As you can see, MrPitt will go on the inside. Shlongster also electing to go on the inside. Very, very nicely done. And this is a track where you can use the mushroom on any turn, really. You just want to be charging mini turbos as close to the fence as you possibly can. Another run ender is if you bump the wall, you can lose all your speed. Bump the fence rather. You lose all your speed, or you can bump the fence and get pushed all the way outward and end up hitting a car. So even though you want to be as close to the fence as possible, you want to be able to still comfortably charge mini turbos, use the mushrooms, because the more you risk it, the closer you get, the more time you will save. But just one mistake will just end the entire run. So MrPitt still going on the inside, so you can see the tanker and then the bus. He does elect to go around the bus. Probably smart on that one. Because as you can see on Shlongster's side, because he was right next to the fence going on the inside of that bus, you can kind of just, you obviously you don't want to gravitate towards the bus, so you end up hitting the fence several times, which will eat a bit of speed. So not too bad. Actually, a pretty solid Toad's Turnpike for both of these players. So as you can see, some of the straight stretch mini turbos, it's very easy on this course to kind of get pulled to one side. And when you have a bad angle, you kind of have to hop to straighten yourself out again, so that you don't just get a mini turbo off and then just run right into the wall. Players playing very, very safe. Shlongster just driving straight on the straightaway. Probably a really good, a good bet actually, because trying to do anything else can be tough. Because the traffic does get pretty gnarly in some spots, especially at the end of lap 3. There's a ton of cars, trucks, and buses. And as you can see, the truck changes lanes at some points and can get in your way when you don't expect it to. But MrPitt will take that with the 236.04. And he's now up 2-1 in set 3. All right, and we're going to Wario Stadium next. All right, so Wario Stadium is the second longest track in the game. A highly technical track because there's so many different skills that you have to master to get a good time. Hopping over the hills, charging mini turbos, like when you're angled and going over bumps, the mushroom is using it over the two big hills right before the kind of like the wide open area in the middle of the track. Very easy to hit the wall and just get tumbled, or you can kind of get sucked in the wall and you'll lose all your speed. So a lot of shenanigans that can happen on Wario Stadium during that entire time, because there are so many different sections that will just mess you up. And it can simultaneously be one of the shortest tracks for a shortcut scenario, because you just hop over the wall and then hop over the wall back. So much like Rainbow Road, you kind of want to just stay right next to the walls and charge mini turbos to maximize your time, or should I say minimize your time. Both players kind of taking wide angles, a lot better than just hitting the wall. MrPitt probably realizing that he wanted to use a mushroom there a little bit late, and goes into a turn, doesn't have time to hit the mushroom, and then just hits the wall and tumbles. So Shlongster is now in the lead. MrPitt, charging a mini turbo over those bumps, not really what you want to do, because you're just gonna slide too much. You don't really have many frames of where the cart is actually on the ground to charge one up. So good in very good in thought process, but very tough to land. I can't say I've ever seen somebody do that before. Hey, Johnny Tyler. Where are you going with that mushroom? So in lap 1, because MrPitt did hit the wall, it looks like Shlongster is in the lead for the time being. Any small mistake, he hit the wall and didn't tumble, but he lost all of his speed. So MrPitt actually takes the lead at that moment. So and then he had a poor bounce. That can definitely happen. The bounce actually will lose a lot of time. MrPitt hitting the mushroom, taking a little bit of a wide angle. He tries to correct it and hits the wall instead. So rolling over, yeah. Sometimes when you hit those multiple bumps on the side angle, it can be really tough to straighten out, and you can run right into the wall. MrPitt does correct himself very well, and had a much better time getting over them this lap. Thank you, Andy Hine. I appreciate that. Shoutouts to Phil Sandhop, wherever you are. MrPitt rolling through with the 116.97. He does take, at this point, a commanding lead. Shlongster with the 122. But he doesn't have a mushroom to get over the final mushroom spot. Shlongster is saving it for the right time to strike. Makes it over the first couple bounces very nicely. Shlongster hits the wall and gets thrown to the outside. MrPitt getting over the large hills. Not too bad. Yeah, just clean driving from here on out. We'll take it. Does charge the mini turbo. Does have and he does correct himself very nicely. Can be pretty tough because you want to just kind of hit the mini turbo and then just drive straight over those hills. But if you're already kind of still turned to the side, you get, like, again, you can just get thrown right into the wall. All right. And at that, we are nearing the end of this, the second longest track in the game. MrPitt had some rough spots, but he made it through with the 356.32, and he is now up 3-1 in set 3. So we have potentially the final pick of the match today. Shlongster with the 403.57. So Shlongster wants to choose something that he knows that he can win, because he needs to bring this back. Looks like we're going to DK Jungle Parkway. A good pick, actually, because so many things can happen that can give him the win on this one. This is another track that has very high variance between times, because there's a few main ways for you to save or lose time. Going over the ramp, over the water, you want to be as far to the left as you can without falling into the water, so that you can maximize the amount of time saved. You can go a little bit safer to the right and guarantee that you'll make it over, but you do lose quite a bit of time. And depending on what strats they do for the mushrooms, the strat that will save you the most amount of time is going over the water as far left as you can, and then hitting the mushroom right away and cutting over the grass. Probably what we'll probably see is using the mushroom in the cave, which is a very solid strat. You can get a very good time using that strategy. So instead of cutting the grass, you go around and then you use the mushroom to climb in the cave as far left as you can, because the cave climb will slow you down unless you use what's called rah-rah strat. You hit R and A at the same time, and anytime that you're slowed down, you want to be triple tapping A to get back up to speed. If you just press and hold A, you'll get back up to speed from a dead stop in about 5 to 6 seconds. If you triple tap A, you get it back up to full speed within a second and a half. So food for thought. So instead of when you're getting slowed down in the cave, you're hitting R so you can hop and tapping A at the same time, hence rah-rah. And then once you hit the top, you'll actually be gaining full speed again very quickly because you have thusly done the triple tap. We do see the cave mushroom from both players. Rather, MrPitt did the grass cut, which is a little bit faster, but then you don't have it. MrPitt doesn't make it. He was just a little bit too far to the left. It looked like it was a good angle, but he falls in, and he's forced to do the jump again. He makes it over this time. So Shlongster is slightly in the lead. The streams are off by a couple seconds, but he is definitely in the lead. He doesn't go over the grass, so that's another spot that is going to save MrPitt a bit of time here. I believe Shlongster is just barely in the lead at this point, but he does have the mushroom for the cave. He hits the side of the he hits the post for the bridge, and it slows him down. It knocks him off into a bad angle here. But MrPitt going into 4 frames per second mode here. Oh, he's back. So he does make it this time. So that's going to give him the lead. As you can see, Shlongster did go all the way to the right, which, as you can see, it makes a huge difference to try and cut as much of the core of the water as you can, because you just thusly taking a better angle. So looks like MrPitt's going to take the final track. He'll take the 3rd set and win the match. Very nicely done. And he rolls through 217.45. Shlongster using the mushroom, but it kind of is a little bit too wide. He does get the 221.94. Nice driving from both players today. All right, so I will plug who is playing next. On SpeedGaming on the 16th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, we have Matthias, the world record holder, versus Zoran in the top players here. So definitely want to catch that. So again, that is Friday the 16th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. You'll see 2 of the top players go head to head on SpeedGaming. Good game to both players today. So both players were 0-1. MrPitt is now 1-1. Shlongster is 0-2 now. Beyond that, we also have another match coming up on the 17th at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time. It's going to be Hayden versus Patrick. It's going to be another good match there. So catch us next time. Thank you so much to SpeedGaming for hosting our Mario Kart 64 tournaments, the 150cc's, the Time Trials League Season 1, and now Season 2. Thanks to everybody for coming out and hanging out, and we'll see you next time. Take care.